Good morning. How are you? It's just me today. Dave Bronstetter's taken a couple of days off. Nothing critical. He'll be okay. He'll be joining us again probably next week. I trust you are well for this, what is it, Thursday the 30th of April. It's tax day. What did I do? I paid my taxes today. Now you might say, wait a minute, you don't have to pay your taxes. No, you don't have to. Things have changed in the midst of this pandemic, but I have been a freelance worker now for nearly 30 years. Travailleur autonome, and you get into habits and you got to pay your taxes. And that's what I did today. I have to pay GST and PST as well. So those amounts went out today like a good boy. I can confirm that the system is working well because someone in this household was expecting a refund and it arrived in due course within a relatively reasonable period of time. So things are working well. If you can pay your taxes, then please do, because we need the money. We need the money. What else happened today? My spouse went to a local gardening center here, fairly large one. She, like many gardeners, is champing at the bit to get things in the ground. It's a little early, but she went to see what they had in terms of herbs and things. Nothing was available, but she did see the staff with full visors. And there are, of course, hand disinfecting stations everywhere, and the aisles are one way. She was taken to task, she told me, for not following the proper direction in one of the aisles. People are skittish. The staff, of course, have very specific instructions, and they expect customers to follow the rules. So this is what you're going to see if you go to a store anytime soon. I'm off to Canadian Tire. I'm not plugging the store necessarily, but I placed an order online a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, and it's been processed. And what they do is they send you an email with a scan code, and they've got it all set there. So we're going to see how Canadian Tire is doing. We were out picking up soil and other things yesterday at Canadian Tire. Things were proceeding in a rather orderly fashion. Not a mask to be seen in sight. Don't know why. We were wearing masks, but no one else was outside, and no one, at least lining up to get in the store, had one on, from what I could tell. But that's going to have to evolve and change. And it's about remaining patient. And it's not the fault of the kid who puts the soil in your trunk or the groceries in your car. It's not his or her fault that these rules have to be followed. Things are going to be, I guess people are going to remain skittish for some time. Is it too early to be doing this? That's going to be the subject of discussions through this weekend into next week. Russell Koopman is going to join us next week. He, a former politician who's been working in academia for quite some time now. I'm looking forward to hearing what he thinks about how the government has handled things, about how he feels about kids going back to school. By the time we speak to him, it'll be that time where some kids will be going back to classes. So that's coming up next week. This morning, we are joined by Paul Graif, and I'm going to admit Paul into the great speaking room here. Paul is at K103.7 in Kahnawake. There he is. He's looking at me. He's probably got a newscast to do in a couple of minutes. So maybe because I joined him a little too early. Okay, well, I'll let him keep going with what he's got to do. Paul has been in the business in media in this city for, my God, almost 30 years. Is that possible? I was reading his bio, and I had no idea that Paul started at K103 in Kahnawake and then left there to work in some larger newsrooms on the island and went back to K103. So I think he's on the air as we speak. So we'll be talking to Paul while he is doing what he is to be doing. I'll share a little something with you that I noticed a few weeks ago, a piece that was published in Le Devoir, Tournée du Petit Monde Médiatique de Kahnawake is the title of the piece. Again, it's kind of a tour of the small media environment in Kahnawake. And they talked to Paul. Of course, this was on, I believe, on the heels of the barricades and the blockades last winter. Seems like a lifetime ago now, doesn't it? And they talked to Paul about what it is like to be working in a First Nations environment, about what it's like to report on what's going on there. And I'm going to be asking him in a couple of minutes, first of all, if Le Devoir got it right, because they quoted him in a couple of places. Let me see if I can find it. Tu es un outsider, says Paul. You are an outsider. Me too. So I know what it's like. I'm translating on the fly here. It takes time to establish good relationships with people. He says, I hope I'm getting there. I want to make clear, however, that the Mohawk Council is not, the members of the Mohawk Council are not my friends. And we're looking for a mutual respect here, but they don't necessarily care for the way that some of the reports are handled. So this is an interesting and delicate matter. So once Paul has finished his newscast, we will be talking to him about that. And you can see, I think, the studio door there. And Paul is facing it. There he is. Did I get you in mid-newscast there, buddy?
You certainly did, Yvonne.
I'm terribly sorry.
No, that's okay. I had all the audio off. I literally just signed off my newscast.
I'm flying solo here this morning, Paul. I was just going over, let me just catch you up. I was just going over the piece Le Devoir wrote at the end of February about the media environment in Kahnawake, and they were quoting you. Did Le Devoir get it right?
From what I recall, I mean, it seems like so long ago.
Yes, that's what I was saying too. It seems like a lifetime ago, but it was at the end of February. It's 2 months ago already.
Yeah, they pretty much got that one right. I didn't write back to the journalist to say he got it wrong, so they must have gotten it mostly right.
Let's go back a little bit to the beginning now. As I was mentioning a moment ago, I was reading your bio because Bronstetter and I were talking about you a few weeks ago, and I was checking up your bio notes on the K103 website, and I had no idea that you started there.
I started here 6 months after the Oka crisis.
Wow.
In 1991, after it ended, obviously. And I'll never forget, the first time I think I did it by phone. I mean, so this is a new version, of the phone for us now, doing it by Zoom. But doing it by phone from my room. And then after a little while, after a couple of weeks of doing that, I was invited to come in, and it was a sports talk show that this station used to have. And it was in a different building in a different part of the community. And the first time I drove down the Mercier Bridge and came off and exited onto the 207 and had to bring my car to a halt because there was a checkpoint coming into the community, and it was very intimidating. There was a gentleman there with a bandana, covering the lower half of his face, holding an AK-47, comes up to my window. Where are you going? So I'm going to the radio station. Yeah? You know where it is? I said, I was told I go straight down to the water and turn right, and eventually I'll get there. Go. And, I'm sitting in my car shaking, but sure enough, now Kahnawake is like a second home to me. I've been back here as a news director for the last 10 years.
Wow. And that is a lifetime ago. I remember that, 1990, 91?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay. News director.
Yeah, and I worked here.
And co-host of the news director and co-host of the morning show, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's get back to what Le Devoir was writing about. Were they correct in assessing the situation where is there an adversarial relationship between you and the council at Kahnawake? Or is it, I don't mean to be rude, but do they tolerate you as a reporter and as a non-Atukton at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
They do. I mean, look, I'm reporting on a political body.
Yes.
A little bit of a different political body. Of course, it's much bigger than a city hall for any municipality, but it's not quite as big as a federal or provincial government. And it serves almost more purposes than those, because it coordinates almost everything in the community, from fire to police to the hospital to economic development to social programs as well. So there's so many different facets. Look, some of the time I think they're thrilled with the reporting that I do, but I think that would apply anywhere. So it's not just the council. Part of the advantage that I have that a lot of them understand is that I don't really have a stake in what I'm reporting on. I don't live here. I'm not from here. And so it permits me to be more objective in my reporting.
But again, based on the devoir, the narrative, for example, about the blockades was from without. These people were seen to be scofflaws. From within, they were protectors of the earth, more or less. Were they not?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And that was part of how all of this was told, and how people here understood it. And you know, having been here for when the chiefs came from the Wet'suwet'en territory, and there was a traditional longhouse greeting of, and I was, you know, there for it. I mean, had to be outside because we're not permitted in if you're not a member of the longhouse and or a traditional person or even from the community. But you're still, I'm still accepted in by so many members of the community. I guess years of reporting, you know, doing it with the utmost respect and honesty, you know, people will appreciate what you're doing. But I mean, look, the role of reporters in the first place is not for us to be loved. It's
Right.
it's to dig for the truth.
Right.
And
Okay.
I, you know, that's where the respect is earned, and people talk to you that way. So within the community, there was a lot of good feedback about the job that this radio station was doing in terms of telling that story, because there were so many different angles and different people to talk to.
So that respect then is, you feel it when you talk to
Yes.
folks on the street, and yeah. Okay. That's
Absolutely.
that's 100, that's 80% of it, 90% of it right there, is it not?
At least,
Yeah.
I mean, because if that respect is not earned, even if, you know, you're going to be tough, then, you know, people won't talk to you. And if they're not talking to you, then you really have a major impediment to doing your job properly as a reporter. And I'll give you an example. I won't go into the specifics of the story, but there was a story I needed to speak to somebody yesterday, and we had, that person used to work at the Mohawk Council, and I guess from something that had happened a couple of years ago, she didn't like the way I reported a story. When I called her for comment on her own career yesterday, she was very skeptical in terms of talking to me. And there had to be a lot of promises made before we started recording anything, how it would work. And then as soon as it was done, I got a note after the story aired and said, wow, you did a really nice job with that story. And I think I'm not going to hold personal grudges, and I'm hoping that people won't hold grudges against me when I'm reporting, because I have to keep returning to the same people. Right. This is not like working when I did at the CBC, where, you know, you can just sort of disappear into the ether and move on to the next story. You're still going back to the same people over and over in a community of less than 10,000 people. Right.
But that's a universal law too, right? You have to stick to your principles and do
Yes.
the job right every single time. And okay, let's talk about, I was listening to you this morning, and you had someone on talking about the pandemic and about testing and things like that. How's that going within the community?
It's the model for the way Quebec should be acting, for the way Canada should be acting, certainly the United States, but around the world. And the reason being, and Kahnawake is a special place. We talked about the Oka crisis earlier. And after the Oka crisis, this community really mobilized and started creating action plans. And part of that was creating an emergency preparedness law that they passed a few years later. And they've constantly been upgrading that law and modifying it to suit the needs of whatever happens. So 98 through the ice storm, having to go through flooding a couple of years ago with the spring thaw. They keep updating this emergency preparedness plan. So the minute a global pandemic was declared, or even before that, when the schools were canceled on March 12th, they created this task force, and they knew who to grab because they had this law in place and they had these procedures in place. And so they took the director of public safety, the head of the police, the fire department, of social services, of the hospital. That's who you had heard this morning, Lisa Westaway, is the executive director of the Kahnawake Memorial Hospital Center. And they come together and they make all these decisions for the community. And this community, being so tight knit and on such a postage stamp of territory, are forced to be even stricter so that they don't bring in the virus. And the biggest place is at the hospital, which is not an urgent care hospital. It's more of long-term, but also full of all kinds of other clinics. And so essentially they have kept the disease out of the inpatient portion of the clinic, which has more than 50 people. They have a seniors residence in the community. They went on lockdown right away. And so they've avoided hospitalizations and death in this community. They also closed down the community to everybody by putting up signs prohibiting people from coming here, even looking for cigarettes. And they've fined dozens of people already over $1,500 each for doing just that.
So you feel comfortable at social distancing in the station taking place as well, and hand disinfecting? And
sadly, with the way this is working on the economy for everybody, we're not immune to it here at the radio station. And because of that, about 80% of our staff has been laid off. And being the news director, I've been deemed essential. I have my own studio. I mean, if you want to kind of see it right now.
Sure.
I'll give you a little.
Oh, there we go.
You can see the glass behind the board where I work from.
Yeah.
That's where the main studio is.
Okay.
And so we're distanced unless I'm in there interviewing members of the task force, who are the only ones who are permitted to come in for interviews.
Okay. All right. So you're not fooling around. All right. So you're in your fish bowl there, and then you leave your fish bowl and go back home to your spouse and everything else. And
exactly. Yeah. And I follow the task force guidelines when they said right away, when you get home, strip off your clothes, throw them in the wash or the dryer for half an hour on high heat and jump right in the shower. It's exactly what I do every single day.
All righty then. Okay. Well, let's
get it. My wife follows that when she goes shopping for our groceries, once a week.
Excellent. Let's get into the more personal things. How are you personally? How's your spouse? I believe you have a daughter, do you not?
I have a 13-year-old daughter, and my spouse and I decided 3 weeks ago that it would be more prudent to have her stay with her mom. A couple of communities over in the West Island. I also live in the West Island, and certainly I talk to her all the time. We FaceTime, we do all that kind of stuff. And I mean, yesterday was a beautiful day when I walked with her for an hour at a distance, close enough so that we could talk, far enough away that, just in case I'm not infecting her with anything or infecting anyone at mom's house.
It's a tough one. I saw pictures of you and your Nana. How's your Nana doing?
Sadly, my grandmother passed away last week at 107.
Oh my goodness.
And it was not COVID
related. 107 years old?
107 years old.
Oh,
she lived an amazing life.
My condolences.
And
I thought that was
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Eva.
I saw the photographs. I said he must be having a rough. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know she passed away. I'm terribly.
No, that's okay. She lived an incredible life and was an amazing woman. And you know what? All of these stories that I'm hearing, reporting on the tragedies that other people are facing. The worst part for us, for my mom, I guess, is that she's completely alone. I can't even go give her a hug.
Right.
I bring her groceries and I put them on her door. She opens the door and we talk from 10 feet away. That's the hard part. But I almost feel fortunate that we were able to be there for the graveside funeral last week. And all social distancing at the time, but people are going through 1,000 times worse. I mean, my grandmother lived a full life and beyond.
Wow.
And no tragedy there. It was just life.
Paul, I'll let you get back to work, buddy. Thank you very much. I appreciate this very much.
Well, this is really nice to do, Yvonne. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, man. It's been a long time, but I'm reaching out to all kinds of people. Again, you've been in the media orbit it's been almost 30 years, has it not?
Yeah, it's been just about 30 years that I've been doing this now.
That's and you're still enjoying it, still having fun?
I'm loving it. I miss, sports on TV, but I think everybody else does too.
That's right too. I didn't even get into the sports part of it with you. I know that you're a big. Yeah. Are you still writing for the? Is it the Eastern Door?
Yes, actually, as soon as you and I get off this call, I'm that story I told you before about the person who I had spoken with. I'm writing up that story as well.
Excellent, Paul. Hang in there. We need people like you out there. Thank you, buddy.
I like that, Ivan. Thank you very much.
We'll see you. Thanks. Paul Graif.
And as we say in Kahnawake, onagiwahi, which means goodbye.
Goodbye to you too, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Paul Graif, another, and I say another, there are many. We'll be hearing from others in the coming days. A stalwart journeyman reporter and media person, and my thanks to him for taking time out. As you can see, he's at work, and how great is that? All right, tomorrow, Lisa Weiss is going to join us or join me. I don't know if Dave will be with us or not, but she is my goodness, I was calling her a life coach when Dave and I were talking about her recently. I'm not quite sure. That may be giving her short shrift, but we'll be talking to her tomorrow, and it should prove to be an interesting conversation. Until then, as Paul said, stay well, be well. We'll talk to you tomorrow.